Look at this. Look at this. I spent a lot of time grinding out the Barbarian in Diablo 4 in the closed beta just to see how far I can push the class, as a lot of people have said, including myself, that the Barbarian is by far the weakest class available to try. But I took this as a personal challenge, and I think I made possibly the strongest build for the Barbarian. Now, after really refining the build, looking at all the skills, I think I found close to the best Barbarian build available for the closed beta. You have extreme damage, thorns, bleed damage. You can buff allies as well as just clear the entire room in a single swing. But most importantly, you're unkillable with this Barbarian build. In this video, I'm going to showcase to you exactly how to make it and give you some tips on how to make it even stronger. Let's begin. Alright guys, I'm going to be showcasing how to actually play the build before we actually jump into the build guide, so you guys can have an idea of the build. This is a hardcore viable build, so just be careful a little bit on the earlier side, like I think around 10. You should have all your war cries by then, but yeah, just be careful because you can die pretty easy. But I'm going to showcase how to do it. And you're going to start this build off by pressing Q, W, and E and getting all your war cries out. This is going to do a couple of things. It's going to give you your taunt, which is going to reduce the damage you take and amplify your thorns. This is going to give you max fury, and then it's going to start buffing your fortify for the damage reduction. As you can see, I'm buffing up now. I can see that the boss is doing this attack here. This is a multi-attack attack. You want anything that does multiple attacks to always hit you because you're a thorn build. This does a ton of damage, and I think it's shadow. And shadow is actually not that common of a resistance to get, so this does a ton of damage. So if you're not tanky like me, this will kill you in like 2 or 3 balls. But I see that he did it, and I have my taunt up, which is amplifying my thorns. If you're in this position, you should be hitting with Flay to get your 25% damage reduction, as well as your 12% damage reduction, which we're going to go over in a second. But with your Flay, you're getting 37% damage reduction on top of your 40% damage reduction plus armor and shadow and all your resistances. But let's finish and let it play out. So as you can see, the boss absolutely chunks himself. He's down to like a bar and a half, and we're still at half HP while tanking a full blast from the boss. From here, typically I just keep hitting. That grab he does is good. You should let him grab you if he can, but the hitbox is weird. And then we just finish him off. We hit him with Rupture to proc his bleed and just keep hitting him, and he's dead. That took a total of 16 seconds to kill him. This is very common for literally every boss, unless they're super tanky. But most bosses will die in around 15 to 25 seconds with this build, and Trash just absolutely get murked in seconds. Alright guys, welcome to the part of the video where I break down the build. I'm going to start off with explaining the skills, followed by explaining the items so you can understand the synergies and how it works. So, starting this thing off, I want to show you my life. I have 500 life, 1,800 armor, and at my base I have a total of pretty decent resistances, all things considered. And then I have where's my thorns? I have 571 base thorns, and when I'm buffed I have 975. I have another way of generating additional 170 thorns, which we're going to talk about here in a second. So whenever I'm fully buffed, I have 1,200 base thorns. So almost 600 HP. Pretty good. Alright, let's go over the skills so we can talk about exactly what each skill does in the synergy. So first up we have Flay. Flay will deal damage as well as bleed over 5 seconds. We have Enhanced Flay. This gives vulnerability chance. This is 20% when you have a 2-hand weapon. We use 2-hand sword. We have Combat Flay. This is the thing that gives me 42 thorns for 3 seconds, and it can stack up to 4 times. And then probably more importantly, it gives you 12% damage reduction at its max, which makes it so that you're taking less damage. Next we use Rend. Again, big damage followed by a ton of bleed. We also extend vulnerability by 2 seconds whenever we hit them with this, so it has real good synergy with Flay. And then Furious Rend will grant 4 fury per enemy hit up to 20. This means that this skill in a lot of cases can cost 15. And then, you know, you still get a really good damage skill for 15 fury, which is good because it costs a lot. This is really big on the build. This is Rallying Cry. What this does is it gives you generation of your fury, but also it gives you move speed, which this can be used for allies as well. Enhanced Rallying Cry, that's whatever. This is not that important, but you have to get it. But this one's super important, 25 fury as soon as you pop it, which gives you a fury boost as well as 50% resource regeneration on top of the base 50% that you get, which gives you 100%. We'll talk about why that's important in just a second. Challenging Shout, this gives damage reduction by 40% and it taunts enemies. And then we have Enhanced Challenging Shout, which gives 20% bonus. That's why my health went up to like 600. And then while Challenging Shout is active with the Strategic Challenging Shout, it gives you 50% of your maximum life as thorns. And this is where a big portion of our thorns come from that really ramps us up. So with Outburst, this is really core too. You get 50 thorns and you get an additional 17 thorns for every turn bonus maximum health you have. And then with Tough as Nails, you increase your thorns by a flat percent. And when enemies hit you, they take an additional 1% of your thorns as bleeding damage over time. You're already getting benefit from bleeds anyway, so why not get more stacking damage? Warcry gives a 15% damage increase to you and your allies. The important thing with this skill is the fact that you get Enhanced Warcry, which gives you Berserking for 4 seconds. And then Power Warcry, it helps, it just gives extra damage. I'm sure you can go with this for Fortify if you want, but you don't really need it with the build. This extra damage is more valuable because you get Fortify in other ways, which I'll explain as well. The last skill you get is Rupture. This will stab and deal damage to enemies, but what's important about this is it'll pop the bleeding and it'll instantly remove the bleed and deal the damage. And if you have Enhanced Rupture when you're doing this, it'll cause a bleeding AoE explosion and put bleeding on other enemies, causing the chain of more bleed. Fighter's Rupture will heal you whenever you hit an enemy with Rupture. It doesn't really matter if they're about to die or not. It just gives you 15% HP, so good sustain. Now that we covered all the skills, we should have a pretty good idea of what we're trying to accomplish here. We're trying to tank up with health, and we're bleeding enemies and using thorns. But let's talk about the gear because this is super important. So the first thing I want to cover is Berserking, and Berserking will give me thorns with this aspect. This gear has thorns on it too. That's the big thing. And then I guess I got resistances, but you want thorns. While Berserking, I do get some fire damage. Again, this isn't that important, but it's just some extra synergy since I'm already Berserking all the time anyway, so why not get some fire damage? And then here's the big thing: whenever you deal direct damage while Berserking, inflict 26% of base damage dealt as an additional bleed over time. I don't know if you notice, whenever I fight enemies, I just absolutely chunk the big guys whenever I'm fully buffed, and this is part of it. I'm always Berserking and I'm always dealing extra bleed. For the helmet, this is pure utility and damage. More health equals more damage, obviously. And then thorns with the slot. If you can find slots, always put emeralds in them. But here's the thing: you also get additional life regeneration up to 44 life per second. That's like, I don't know, 8% HP regen or something when it's at its max, so it should help out with sustain. You're going to be taking really little damage because of this next set. My chest has a basic skill, grants 25% damage reduction for 6 seconds. Keep in mind, Flay gives 12%, and Flay is considered a basic skill, so those two together give you 37% damage reduction as long as you're attacking. On top of that, I got a little bit lucky. I got life on this, and then I got thorns on this, percent life obviously, and then I got thorns, and then I upgraded it, so I have a lot of extra damage and some defense with this, with the poison resistance, so super good synergy here. Next, I have my hands giving me 1 rank to rend. It doesn't really matter too much with what rank it went to, as long as it was ability on my build. And then I have 5.2% physical damage over time, which buffs my damage over time since I'm a bleed build. But the important thing here is stunning a bleeding enemy deals 38% of their total bleeding amount to them as physical damage. Obviously we want this, but how do we get stunning on a bleeding enemy? And that is through the synergy on my boost, which is direct damage against bleeding enemies has a 36% chance to stun them for 2 seconds. So as you see, these two together has really good synergy, as I can stun and I can get that extra physical damage. Where was I? I just disconnected from the server. I think we were talking about the legs next. And for the legs, I have this imprint that gives fury generation while at maximum fury grants 2.6 fortify. So basically, whenever I over-leash on my fury, it goes to my fortify generation. And since I generate a lot of fury, I can fortify myself really fast. Now, I'm going to show you why I'm generating fury from just yelling in just a second. But as you can see, the ability to fortify is really big, as it gives 10% damage reduction at any given time while you have it active. And while I'm fortified, I get 4.5% damage reduction. I have, again, 39 thorns plus the thorns that I put in. And then I have 7.1% damage reduction from close enemies. This pair of legs give me a ton of damage, and it gives me a ton of damage reduction while giving me fortification. So the reason why I was actually getting that fortify is because of my ring. And this ring is whenever you use your shout skill, they generate 4 fury. So because I have 3 shouts, I'm generating fury. So it's really easy to get my fury up really high. And plus, as you remember before, my Rend gives me fury generation. My rally cry whenever I'm hitting gets 100% additional fury generation. So I get a lot of extra fury, which maintains my fury bar, giving me a lot of extra fortification. In turn, I get damage reduction at all times. But to add to that fury, what I have on my hand is whenever I deal damage with skills, it deals damage based upon how high my fury is, or your primary resource. This could be used on any character, but since my primary resource is fury, I get 25% based on how high that is, and this is always super high because of the nature of the build. On top of that, I have this one you can get from the dungeon, and you have up to a 30% chance to gain 20 fury whenever you use Rend. So keep in mind, Rend already gives me some extra fury for just hitting enemies with Rend with this one. So in a lot of cases, I end up getting a lot of free Rends from having this synergy. One final note on my weapons, I did end up putting a lot of damage over time on my abilities. I'm not sure if this is the same as physical damage over time, as my gloves have physical damage over time. Again, I haven't really been able to really test it as we don't have a lot of time, but just letting you guys know, if that's what you're trying to follow my build, that's what I put on it. Not sure if it's good, but it works out so far for me in this build. Finally, I just wanted to talk about some other options that you can actually put on your gear if you can't find all these items in the closed beta. I mean, obviously you could probably take this build a little bit higher once the game fully comes out, and you can use this as a baseline. But anyway, this is another option. You can deal 5.8% increased damage up to 30% for every second you stand still. You're a Thorns build, you're tanky, you're not going to take a lot of damage, so it's fine to stand still with this build. So that's an option. You have this for a defensive option. You get 2.8% damage reduction for each nearby bleeding enemy. You're always going to be bleeding someone, so it doesn't really matter. And though this isn't the best versus bosses, 3% still isn't that terrible. You can get something like this. You can restore 4 of your primary resource every time you CC an enemy. A lot of your war cries will CC them. If I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is counted as like a CC. Could you like knock them back and stop them? But you can get some extra regeneration from this if you want to. I don't know how good it is, so. And then this is another option. Damaging an enemy with a core skill has a 33% chance to extend the duration of berserking by 1 second. Double this if it was a crit. Now the crit thing you won't be able to get that much benefit from, but if you're berserking and then you start hitting them with Rend, which is a core skill, you could in theory get some extra berserking out of this, though I think you would probably need a crit build, or like, I don't know, maybe a better roll, who knows. But those are some of the options. The final option is a item that I could not find, and it's supposed to give you AoE thorns whenever you inflict thorns. That would increase your clear speed and your damage speed by a massive amount, like a massive amount. But I wasn't able to find it. But if you find that, that can be an option too. But this alright, and there you have it, guys. That is my Bloodthorn Barbarian build. Let me know what you think about the build, or if you have any questions, you feel free to leave me some questions down in the comments and I will try to answer it. But yeah, let me know what you think about the build. It should be relatively tanky. It's hardcore viable. It starts a little slow, but you do a lot of damage and you can pretty much man fight anyone. I can beat the Butcher, I can beat anything currently available in the beta. So give it a try, let me know what you think, and if you want to join the Discord and post some links trying out the build, feel free to join. There will be a link in the description. Don't forget to like as well as subscribe, and I will see you in the next video very, very soon. Later.